Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are a cable show that is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. I am your co-host, Linda Raymond, and our host, Don Baker.
Don Baker. Yeah, we had a little technical difficulties today. Welcome. Ashley is off today. He's enjoying some family things for Thanksgiving. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. I have some announcements about our group, the Atheist Community of Austin. It's a nonprofit group that promotes the positive atheism and the separation of church and state. Our Sunday meetings are on Sundays at 11:30 a.m. at the Crescent City Beignets, 1211 West 6th Street. And you're welcome if you're atheist friendly. You're welcome to come down, meet us. It's very informal, relaxed sort of deal. We except for the third Sunday, in which we have a lecture series, and that lecture series happens at the Austin History Center at 9th and Guadalupe and starts at 12:30 p.m. Our next lecture will be December 19th, but we don't have a speaker lined up yet, but we will have one. We also have, on Thursday nights, we have the Atheist Happy Hour, Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. at Antonio's Tex-Mex, which is on the southbound feeder of I-35 and 183. After the show today, we're going to have another little dinner, a little get-together for people who have watched the show and want to come down and meet us. We'll have that at Chili's, and that's at the southeast corner of I-35 and 183. And we're going to meet there about 6:45 today. If you're watching this show on Tuesday, we're not meeting there because we're not a live show on Tuesdays. We're a live show on Sunday, and we show ourselves on reruns on Tuesdays. We have other events for members in our group, such as Godless Gamers, and we also have online discussion groups and such, and message boards. And if you want to go to our website, www.atheist-community.org, you'll find more information about ways to contact us. We have message boards and such. I have an announcement. Let's see. Ellen Johnson, the president of American Atheists, will be in Dallas-Fort Worth next Saturday, the 4th, and will speak about what today's American atheists are doing. And Madeline Murray O'Hare, who's kind of one of the original atheist lightning rods, came from Austin. This talk is open to the public. It'll be from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport Marriott, 8440 Freeport Way in Irving, Texas, in the Grand Prairie Meeting Room. There'll be a group going out for an informal dinner at a local restaurant afterwards. So if you're up in Dallas and are interested in doing that, you can do that. Let's see, there is a web address, Shelley at civilgirl.com, and we'll answer your questions about that event if you have more questions. So do we have any other announcements, Linda? Any other things you can think of?
No, that's everything for our weekly announcements and those pertaining to the group.
Okay, good deal. Well, what I want to do now is we have a kind of a rotating co-host format, and Linda's in the hot seat today, so she has a little bit of material on a topic, and maybe I'll chime in a little bit, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll open the floor up for callers for a live call-in show on Sunday, November 28th. So go ahead, Linda.
Okay, well, it's not so much a presentation today as it's a series of observations on how people use religion as a cop-out. They blame things on God and the devil as a way to not take responsibility for their own lives or their own actions. And we're going to culminate with how that's personified or partified, as it were, by the GOP, which has cast itself as the big moral party for this past election. And, of course, that means we're going to be bringing up Tom DeLay, as I'm sure you can already guess. The problem, most people who are not religious, or even the religious who are not as deeply into it as others, have with a lot of theists, is that they will not ever blame their God for anything that bad that goes on, nor will they themselves take responsibility for what's gone that's bad or what's gone that's good. Good examples are football players, shall we say. If anything good happens, they do their little touchdown dance in the end zone, and they thank God right and left. But if they lose, it's not God's fault, even though he didn't answer the prayers. And that's a very small example, but you can bring that up to, like George W. Bush. He likes to do his weekly, his daily prayer things, where he's calling down God's grace on the U.S. for everything good that happens, but anything that bad that happens, he's actually foisting off on the liberals or the devils these days.
Right. I guess they do that with natural disasters too. Right?
Absolutely.
So the hurricanes, if the hurricanes come through, boom, boom, boom.
It's Mother
no
Nature.
Big deal, it's Mother Nature. But if a child is saved is not killed in a trailer home or whatever that gets decimated, then that's God. Hooray for God.
That one of the impacts that actually has on modern life, one of the very negative impacts, people think that these are just casual happenings and they don't really affect things. Look at medical science. There is right now in Austin a very objectionable commercial being thrown for the Victory Christian Center, I believe it's called. And it starts off with the woman saying, we just got a notice from our doctor, or the tests have just come back from the doctor, and we knew that we needed God to help us. So right there, they're already saying that whatever the condition is, they are not going to, even though it's going to be medical science that takes care of them, medical science which does the diagnosis, and medical science which is going to do the cure, they are choosing to turn around and say God is the responsible party, which means, for one thing, that's their way of discounting medical science. They're saying that it's less important than it really is. This is a very much of the whole anti-science. I'm talking about the anti-science movement. And really that's, I think, the gist of it. They want to say everything is God so that they never have to acknowledge anything from another man. And then, of course, for their personal responsibility, they can say, oh, I hurt myself, the devil tempted me to do something stupid, so I fell. Not that they themselves neglected to use common sense, not that they themselves did not look ahead, think about how their actions are going to affect anybody else. The devil literally made them do it. So here you already have two small spin-offs of this inability to take responsibility. They will not acknowledge their own errors, meaning they will never learn from them, they will never do better, and they can discount any kind of modern science, giving the church a little bit more power, the religion a little bit more power. And I know that you have some things about that where the Pope is refusing to take responsibility, or is saying that humanity is responsible for the World Trade Center as opposed to religion, because religion can't do wrong. It won't take responsibility for its own errors.
Yeah. So on August 2002, the Pope toured the Americas and claimed that humanity was responsible for the September 11th attack on the United States. Not blind faith, we had people going to Islamic madrasas and getting indoctrinated in the Quran or whatever. It wasn't blind faith that had anything to do with that, according to the Pope. It wasn't worshiping a mass-murdering God. It wasn't religious institutions that indoctrinated belief in the glorious afterlife. I mean, supposedly the attackers believed that they were, going to have 72 virgins or whatever, ripe for their plucking, every time. So
well, the men anyway.
The men anyway, right? So we didn't blame martyrdom, which is certainly something that the attackers were trying to do, and the Catholic Church, of course, makes a lot of hay out of martyrdom. So that can't possibly be the real reason. What about blaming Islam? It was certainly these people didn't assemble themselves. They didn't dream this up on their own. It was through this indoctrination and this. So even tithing or even giving money to these churches makes people partially responsible for that. So.
Well, it's the whole dogma of religion. You were brought up being told, at least in the Christianity and obviously in the Islamic fundamentalist also, that you yourself are not responsible for anything. If you're Christian, well, it's Adam and Eve. They ate the apple. They're the ones that introduced sin. That's not your fault. If you do something good, it's not your responsibility because you've been touched by God's grace and He's made you good. They therefore reduce all of humanity to nothing but empty vessels to be filled with, I hate the phrase God's grace, but that's the way they look at it. Either that or the temptation from the devil. They want to make everybody into infantile little children, incapable of making a reasoned decision, incapable of reasoning their way through any kind of a problem. They cannot learn because they're not responsible. And you know what happens when you've got people like that? I've still got half your stuff. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
You end up with people like these Tom DeLay thing. There's a chance he's going to be indicted. He hasn't been indicted. they're not asking him to take responsibility. Obviously, we've segued into the politics here. They're not asking him to take responsibility or to step aside until, since he's obviously innocent, until he's proven innocent. They're just changing the rules. All of this comes to the same mindset that a person is not responsible for his actions, no matter what those actions are. Oh, that's your whole thing. That's why.
Okay.
Other problems that we've got is, like the International Court. Of course, again, the Republicans are in the White House. They're passing themselves as the moral party. They're basing so much of their rhetoric has been based on the Christian ideals of this infantilism, this inability to accept responsibility, and this determination to blame everything on other people, to the extent that they are trying to curb the power of the International Court because they're afraid to make themselves responsible to that authority. They want to say they're responsible only to God, which is giving them the excuse to not actually be responsible to the people in the here and now.
Well, this whole Abu Ghraib thing was
yes,
hopelessly irresponsible. You just duck out of all the Geneva Conventions so that you can torture people to advance your agenda.
Exactly.
How awful is that? And as an American, I feel very embarrassed about that. But when it seems to me, when a religious person does something horrendously bad, other religious people don't feel embarrassed. They seem to say, well, that's somebody from another sect, or you shouldn't judge them, right? And all these cop-outs, right?
Or they will completely close rank and say because he did it with the intention of being a good fill-in-the-blank Christian. You don't hear about this about Jews, so I guess you just say Christian or Muslim. So we'll have to give them the benefit of the doubt, if nothing else.
Yeah. So,
one of the very hypocritical things, again, dealing with responsibility for big moral party, is the latest spending bill that's being sent to the president. Something like 3,000 pages. Yeah, 3,000-page bill. And there was a provision in there to allow the Senate Majority Leader, I believe it was, and the head of the Ways and Means Commission, was it? I forget the precise committee. Oh, here it is. The chairman of the, the chairman of some of these Senate committees can look at individual tax returns. Now, they're saying they need to do this for whatever reason they've given. They're never, ever going to use it to, say, go after their political enemies.
Well, they used to have this ability to go out to pull up the tax return of your enemy and then
Exactly.
use that as a political.
J. Edgar Hoover used to do that.
Yeah.
And because that was a violent ethical dilemma, it was an absolute morass, rules were passed against it. Well, they're trying to slip it in to reallow it, and absolutely no Republican is willing to take responsibility for having introduced this provision into the bill.
God must have put it there.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to it. If you want to do something, you do it. If it turns out to be bad or in any way detrimental, you blame the devil, or you blame that guy, you blame Istuk, or you blame Frisk. They're the ones kicking it around right now.
They're all pointing at each other.
Right. These religions just do not teach people to take responsibility. They have to have their overall parental figure and the threat of hell to keep them in line because they themselves are incapable of doing it. In fact, that's one of the big problems with hell. People like to say you have your free will, and then they also say you're going to die and go to hell forever, but it was still your choice. There was no coercion involved.
Yeah. Well, this whole sin thing is just a total bastardization of responsibility. If I mess up somebody or step on their foot or whatever, it's up to me. It's something that I did. It's something that I was conscious of. It's something that I need to apologize for or make amends to that person. No, but this whole sin idea just completely upends this whole thing, right? The victim is supposed to forgive me, so they go off, they're injured or whatever, and they don't get any sort of benefit, any sort of redress for their grievance, and I'm supposed to I'm supposedly a sinner then, and I'm supposed to be more drawn to the church, so I'm going to give more money to the church or whatever, or go ask for forgiveness and this whole confessional thing is just a responsibility shell game. Yes. So so this whole sin thing is a complete bastardization of personal responsibility.
And of course, most of the religions that have a concept of sin also have their great agitator in the background, whether his name is Beelzebub or Satan or whatever the Muslims call him, Ahriman. who's the one pulling the strings and making the sins in the first place, or you're just born nasty.
Right. So I guess God isn't all-powerful or something.
But we already know that one.
And then of course Jesus is supposed to have died for my sins. So I owe the Catholic Church a great debt, I guess, because of that. So somehow, just being born, I'm in debt. So that's the complete screw up of personal responsibility as well.
Exactly. Basically all revealed religion, or again, is practiced mainly in the U.S. by the Christians, is a complete and total abnegation of any kind of personal responsibility. They can blame angels, devils, God, the church, liberals, any kind of a group that they choose to hate. They can blame all of these people. They will never turn and blame their dogma. They cannot do that.
Right. So we have, in recent times we've had this moral connotation, this moral thing going on in the elections. This whole thing's about morality, and
yes.
Are we having good weddings? Are we preventing divorce and such? And I have an article here. This is a comment by Andrew Sullivan where he cites a number of pretty interesting facts. He's comparing the divorce rates and the abortion rates and some of these other things between some of the red states and some of the blue states. And so, for example, in the Bible Belt, the divorce rate is roughly 50% higher than the national average. So it begs the question. Of is religion really helping this divorce issue or not? I mean, they're doing a great job of blaming the gays for their divorces, but in reality, I think that it's because people are being forced into marriage too early, and they're not fully sort of educated as to what they're supposed to do.
And again, they won't take responsibility for that. They have to be able to point to an outsider and say, "This is why I'm a failure."
Right. Staggering 20% of married born-agains have been divorced twice or more. So, come on, let's clean your own house here first. Let's see. In Texas, the teenage pregnancy, teen births are at 16.1% as a percentage of all births. So that's pretty horrible. In liberal secular Massachusetts, they're 7.4%, which is less than half.
And in Massachusetts, they don't teach abstinence only.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why we're so poor.
So who's going to take responsibility for these births and this abstinence only thing? I mean, they sabotaged our education and our textbooks. Mm-hmm. The legislature certainly isn't going to take responsibility. They're foisting. They're trying to encourage people to have all these births to make more souls for God. And this is something I talked about in the last show. But who's going to take responsibility? Well, they're not even educating the children about the responsibility that that there is a responsibility associated with sex, because they're not even talking about sex. Heaven forbid they should talk about it. Let's see, in Holland, this is talking about abortions now, the epitome of social liberalism in Holland. Holland has a rate of an abortion rate of 6.8 per 1,000 women. And the United States has 21 abortions per 1,000 women. So our abortion rate in the United States is like 3 times as much. So what? I think religion is really partly to blame for this.
Partly? I should say it's almost entirely to blame for it.
Okay.
It tells people that they need to go out, be fruitful and multiply, have their children, but you're not allowed to use contraceptive of any sort whatsoever, because God will determine how many children you're going to have. And then when the child is born, which you've been forced to born, which you've been forced to act as a broodmare for, once these children are born, well, suddenly you have to be personally responsible. That's when in fact, that's about the only time personal responsibility enters into it, is, not to generalize too much, of course, is when the men are no longer involved and they get to tell all these young mothers that they've just forced to bear children, that they're got to be responsible for them.
Yep. Oh boy, lots of stuff.
Oh, but they're absolutely hateful.
Yep.
And and of course, it's not just in education or health or anything like this. There was this editorial on Thursday's paper from Austin Bay called "Praying for Guidance in the Valley of Death." He's talking about how he was in Iraq, And he is kind enough to concede that there are occasionally atheists in foxholes. And he says that whenever a patrol or a convoy came back, nobody had been killed, nobody had wounded, rather than thanking God, they would just go ahead and chalk it up as a good mission. And then he says, quote, "For me, a good mission was great, but merely noting the success was never quite good enough." I think that quote speaks volumes for why they don't like to take responsibility, because then they don't have any kind of outside confirmation. If I'm responsible for my own good and I have done something good, well, I don't have anybody patting me on the shoulder and saying, well, that's well done. If they throw off responsibility to a demiurge of some sort, to their little God, to Christ, then they have the comfort of knowing that Christ is telling them that they've done a good job. You know, I'm proud of you. You've done my will. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of this lack of responsibility can't be chalked up entirely to poor education or brainless dogma. I think some of it just goes to needing the feeling of a daddy around.
Yep.
That's another problem with religion. Again, keeping people infantile.
Infantile, right, infantilization. We're a live call-in show on Sunday, November 28th. Our phone number we're going to put up on our phone. Here you can call in a little bit, and we'll open the floor to callers. And you can ask us about the subject matter today, which is responsibility, or you can ask us about any questions having to do with atheism. What about this pedophilia scandal? You know what?
To completely switch gears there.
Yeah. What about that? What about that pedophilia scandal? You know.
Haven't they? They're about to call a synod of bishops, aren't they, to discuss it in America?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll discuss it for a long time.
Oh yes, they're not going to take responsibility for it, though.
Right. Right. I've heard all sorts of things. I've heard them blame the victims. I've heard them, the Catholic Church, blame the priests because they weren't devout enough or devoted enough to God. Never mind that the scandal's been going on for what, decades? 4 or 5 decades. One little tactic I really liked was that they actually did some sort of court thing where they were trying to sue on church-state separation. They were claiming that they didn't have to obey the laws of the United States because there was a church-state separation. And
I never heard about that.
Yeah, so it is, everything, and yes, it's horrible that this happened, and all this, and the priests need to be punished and dealt with, and get some therapy or whatever. But I think the real scandal is the upper hierarchy of the Catholic Church that works so hard to cover it up and to move the priest around. When they could have addressed this head on, they instead did hush payments to the various victims. And left a lot of very messed up people, I think, in the wake of this thing.
And of course, now we also have the fun of seeing some of these dioceses go completely broke because they're having to pay so much in their settlements. Seattle, wasn't it? Had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Yeah,
and that's another interesting thing is the Catholic Church is all broken up into pieces so that if any one piece goes bankrupt, the others don't. So it's another thing of, well, we're doing these horrible things, but we don't want to be responsible for it. It's like an Enron sort of scandal where the Pope said, I know nothing about this. I know nothing. I see nothing.
His Sergeant Schultz routine.
Yeah, and he basically dictates all the rules, but doesn't have to back up his edicts and such with money.
Right, we see now that's one of the fun things about having the silent partner in your corporation, in this case God or the Holy Spirit or whatever they go for, being incorporeal. They can blame him for absolutely anything. God did not give him the proper will. The devil allowed him to be tempted. The Holy Spirit abandoned him because he was a nasty man, something like that. They have all these invisible friends that they can call on to take the blame for what actually happened.
Yep. Okay, well, we have a couple callers lined up. Today, after the show, we're going to go to Chili's at I-35 and 183, the southeast corner, near the Academy. You're welcome to come down and meet the cast and crew. We have quite a few crew folks here, and last time we did this, we had 10 or 12 people overall, and we had a wonderful time. So that's on the screen there. So I guess we'll go ahead and start taking callers, unless you have something else.
No, I think we've rambled.
We've got some other stuff. Okay, it looks like Ed?
Yes.
Welcome. You're on the line.
Okay, great. Great show. I was just going to ask, since you were talking about some current things in the paper, did you guys hear any chance or see the article on the lady that chopped her
absolutely.
arms off?
Chopped her arms off, huh? No, I haven't heard about this. What was the deal?
Her babies. What it is her, it was an 11-month-old child, wasn't it?
I believe so, but I saw, or I think I read it online where the 911 call, they said there was some hymn playing in the background when she called in. And I thought, oh no, because
not again,
it was the
huh?
same area that, I think it was from Euless or somewhere, which is the same area where the lady that stoned her kids. Wasn't that a couple of years ago? Or
right, that was about a year and a half. And as I recall the details for this particular case, she had actually said some things, quoted some of these, punishing the children type things from the Bible, enough to give her husband a heads up, but he didn't report it. He didn't seek professional advice, any therapist. They're chalking this up to postpartum depression, a lot like with Andrea Yates. And she just went ahead and sliced off her daughter's arms. She bled to death.
That just seems so weird. I mean, it seems like that's, is that like a religiously motivated thing, or?
We certainly see a lot of that. I don't know quite what it is.
No, this case is still, this was, last week or so? I haven't seen any analysis of the woman or her motivation or anything like that. Just what they're deducing from, like you say, the hymn, from the Bible verses she quoted to her husband, things of that nature.
Yeah. I just thought that was real strange, because it seems like it was from Euless or somewhere, which I thought, that's the same place that the lady that stoned her kids.
Yes, and she's showing one of the very facile uses of religion is it gives you a really great excuse to do almost anything you want. Almost anything can fit into the framework of religion. You want to kill your kids? Well, you can prove that it'll save their immortal souls by killing them before their sin or something like that. But again, we don't know for sure that's why she did this. They haven't figured that out.
Right. It's from a very red part of the state, too, so.
Yeah.
Very religious up there, so.
Well, unfortunately.
Okay, well, great show, y'all. Thanks for letting me call in.
Okay, Ed, take care. Thank you for calling. So yeah, there's a lot of that, it seems. Not to say that religion necessarily causes you to do that. I think that maybe people who are more likely to do that may be more drawn to religion or something, or.
And it's what they would call an enabler if it were a human. It just, if you want to do something, you are guaranteed to be able to find something in the Bible to back you up, and it just gives people, makes them feel comfy cozy, like they have the okay to do whatever they want.
Yeah, Ashley calls it the great big book of multiple choice, right?
Yeah.
Find whatever you want in there.
And the name for the people are like salad bar Christians. They pick and choose what parts of the Bible they want to pick from. And again, this gives them the opportunity to eschew any kind of responsibility, because by golly, they can back it up with a quote from the Bible that shows what they did was good.
Right. Okay, the next caller, Doris.
Hi. I've listened to your show a couple of times, but today you guys are really on a roll against Christians. I disagree with everything you've said.
Okay.
I don't know if this will make sense at all, but I am an ex-Catholic, and I am now a born-again Christian, and there is a world of difference. So when I think of the word Christian, I would not think of a Catholic, because they follow the Pope and what the Church teaches. A Christian will follow the Bible, and the two are not the same.
Well, I agree that Protestant and Catholic are different animals, but they're both Christian. They're both following Christ, right?
No, the Catholics follow the Pope, and they pray to Mary. They do not follow Jesus exclusively. There's a lot of mixture of things in there. It's almost had some paganism in it.
Some paganism is rife with paganism.
But no, but when someone says Christian, I would not. You have to decipher between the two. So.
Okay. Well, I hear this a lot. That that's not my sect. It's not my. They're not the true Christians. I hear this all the time from Christians that these others
would follow
aren't.
Jesus. That's the thing. They would follow Jesus and not a human. Also. As far as personal responsibility, I feel as a Christian, I have a lot of personal responsibility. I think that's what Jesus taught. I mean, he taught to love your neighbor, to love one another. And, people that do things in the name of religion, I don't consider those people Christians at all. I don't even see how they can be. People are people, and there's good and bad in every, in general, in people. And
so you would agree that religion doesn't help you be a good person?
Now, there's a difference between following the Lord and religion. I do not follow religion. I follow the Lord. And
okay.
I think I don't believe in ceremonialism and things like that, like following a religious tradition is going to make someone holy or whatever. Am I making any sense to you?
Yeah.
I don't believe in being religious. I believe in having a relationship with the Lord.
Do you get your information about your Lord from the Bible?
Of course.
The Bible was written by men. How do you...
It's God-breathed. God's breathed into them.
And the Catholics...
It was written in different times, from, thousands of years, and nothing contradicts anything. There's no contradiction.
Actually, we could do 5 shows on that.
Yep.
But of course, the Catholics...
See, your eyes are...
But, Madam, of course, that
looking at it from an unbeliever. Your eyes are not open to it. The Holy Spirit is not leading you.
But Madam, that the Catholics think that the Pope is also inspired by God?
No, I don't believe so.
No, I know you don't. The Catholics do.
Well,
so you think the Bible's inspired by God, they think the Pope is. You're both following man-made creations.
No. Actually, God's law is written in my heart.
Then what do you need the Bible for?
I know the difference between right and wrong, and I know if I'm sinning. I know if I'm doing something wrong.
Then what do you need religion for?
Pardon?
Then what do you need religion for?
I don't.
Yet
I need Jesus. There's a difference.
Then what do you need Jesus for if you already know right from wrong, if you already know how to be a good person?
Because he is my God. I worship him. He gives me my thoughts. If I'm in, let me rephrase that. I'm in control of my own thoughts. It's like if I believe in the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. That I believe the 3 are one. They're different. It's like a wife can be a mom, can be a wife is a woman. That kind of a thing. I don't know how to explain it. That's a very complicated topic. But I believe since I accepted Jesus as my Savior, I truly think differently. I really try to follow him, to be I have to lean on him. I have to give him things that upset me.
So who's more important, man or God?
It's like I don't like to. Before I accepted the Lord, I had no problem lying.
These days
you have no problem, if somebody gave me at the store an extra 50 cents, not saying something. Well, I don't do those things anymore.
Madam, now that you've accepted God or Jesus, do you have any problem hating your family? That's one of his commandments,
I don't hate my family. Why
You're supposed to. You're required to hate your brother, your father, your sister, your mother, your daughter. That is in the Bible.
No, it doesn't mean that you hate them. You can get mad at them and you can separate and go a different way.
It's mistranslated, isn't it?
I don't agree with the way my family, they are Catholic, but I'm not going to hate them. But when the time comes when we have, if I had to make a choice, I would have to separate from them.
No, but
so
the Bible...
that's the gist of this Bible quote that you're bringing up, right? Is that you're supposed to disown your family if it means going to Jesus, right, and following
walk
Jesus.
Away from,
well, it does say explicitly you're supposed to hate them.
Yeah.
And it says you're supposed to turn against them.
So, ma'am, are you...
Turn against somebody means do them harm. No, that's not what it's saying.
So who's more important, man or God? Am I more important than God as a human being to you?
So you're asking trick questions, I think. I've never thought about it, so I don't know how to answer that.
Well,
I think we're supposed to love our God, and we're supposed to love one another, and the two kind of go hand in hand. So I would not want to do you any harm.
Well, I think there's lots of situations where the love of your God is at odds with the love of your fellow man. And if you have to choose between the two,
He loves us. That's why Jesus came.
Well, that's why it says that in the Bible. But you know, whether you know, we don't necessarily even buy that there is a God. So as far as we're concerned, it's a story.
If you were shown all the proof that there possibly could be, you would still reject him. I think that's what it boils down to.
Well, we haven't seen any proof.
There's absolutely no proof for any God.
I mean, you know.
Madam, if looking around were a proof of a God, then we wouldn't have Hindus and Muslims and Christians and voodoo. They would all look around, they would see this irrefutable proof, and they would all deduce the existence of the exact same God.
Right. There wouldn't be Protestant Catholic, you know.
Right. I mean, clearly, even people who are predisposed to believe in invisible beings.
That's the work of the devil, actually.
Oh.
What you're talking about the different.
The devil's responsible.
The different religions. I think you could laugh, but he wants to divide people. He wants people to be angry with each other, and.
Okay. Well, we don't believe in the devil either. Well, Doris, thank you very much for your call. We're going to let you go. Thank you for calling, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh boy. I guess. I don't know what to say.
Well, I guess we've it's good to know that we are in our place at this being bidden by the devil to break people up and cause fights. I mean, of course, religion is not responsible for that. Giving people flat-out dogma and orders on how to live their life is not responsible for any kind of tension. No, we had to create a whole other being to slip in there to take responsibility off of God's shoulder because he doesn't make mistakes.
Right. And he must not be powerful enough to deal with the devil, right? So,
or he wants him there. Maybe he's just a malicious God.
Well, you know, if you read the Bible, he's a pretty sadistic creature, you know.
In the Old Testament,
definitely.
In the Old
Testament, definitely. Okay, so we take another caller. Thomas, hello.
Hello. I was going to call in and do some fake thing, but then I was listening to the last lady, right? You know, I was going to go with a joke. That lady was a fucking idiot. Seriously, y'all proved her wrong 20 times, and she kept on backtracking and stuff.
Well, and we're not here to beat people up. Did you have a question?
You know, I like I said, I was going to do a fake thing. I just wanted to say that.
So you're calling in to be a crank caller? Come on.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a nice day outside, you know?
Yeah, but I was just watching, and y'all were talking to that lady, and I just found that it moved me enough to quit being a punk.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
So
a conversion of sorts, huh?
Yeah.
You're an atheistic epiphany.
We feel so honored. That's great.
I'm definitely a firm believer in all that you say as well. I grew up as Episcopalian, if you know anything. It's very strict, you know, all this good stuff. And I was always asked questions and stuff, and nobody could answer my questions. And I was maybe 11 years old, and I just sat and thought to myself, and I was like, why can't anybody answer these questions that I have?
Well, good for you. That's good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's great. I think that's the road out of that morass is asking questions and thinking. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm sure you heard, as our last caller just said, that there are no contradictions in the Bible. I bet you got lots of answers like that, didn't you?
Yeah. No contradictions at all. I found that was very humorous too. I know a lot about the Bible and stuff. You know, I had to study it. You know, I'm confirmed, all the whole jazz. And yeah, I used to have horrible fights with all my friends. Very Baptist, very religious. It was always fun.
Here in Texas, I assume?
Yes. I grew up in a very small town, and yeah, it was horrible. But I'm cool now. I'm cool. Atheism has helped me express myself.
Oh, excellent. Well, we're glad you called. That's always good to hear positive messages.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas.
Later.
So yeah, I think atheists do feel a bit of a stigma, right, for talking out about what they believe in and this being skeptical about various claims and things. You can kind of get beat up, and I think in a small town it's especially bad.
Yes, I've never had to live in a small town, but it's all secondhand anecdotes, but I've heard nothing but bad.
Yep. Well, I grew up in Denver, so I guess I lucked out on that. I don't know. Didn't have to deal with religion too much in Denver.
Yeah, and I'm from Houston, and it's a nice big metropolitan area. And I never lived anywhere near these fundamentalist churches, thank heavens. So I never had to deal with those people, even on a one-day-a-week basis.
Yeah. All right, let's take another caller. Chris, hello.
Hey, I've seen you guys on a few weekends. It's nice to finally get in to talk to you guys. It's probably slower because of the Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's a holiday weekend.
But yeah, I did grow up in a small town in West Virginia, so I do have a slightly different background.
It's a beautiful state.
And I started out, I was probably as good a Catholic as anybody until I was 22 or 23. And then, of course, I found another religion founded by Ayn Rand.
Objectivism?
Yes. And then, of course, when that was bankrupt, I've never really. I guess I'm still kind of looking for maybe like there's something to believe in, because I don't really. I just call myself an agnostic, and I guess I still feel very unsure because there are so many things that we can't know. But somebody pointed out to me, what gives you hope?
Well, that's a good question. I'm a humanist for one, so I believe in the power, the potential of the human race to solve its own problems and to overcome our difficulties. And so it's kind of have hope in my fellow man. It's certainly not a supernatural thing by any means, but that's something that I hold out, for, and our eventual understanding of a lot of science and how the world works, how the universe works, and such. Linda, do you want to talk about that?
It's more or less the same. I've never adopted the label of humanist, but I'm always just wildly excited at the idea that someday we're going to learn whatever we don't know now, and I am perfectly willing to sit there and accept the fact that it may not happen in my lifetime. I personally may never know black holes, the origin of the universe, but we're going to someday, and that's so neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty neat, I guess. It's just, I don't know. I think in some cases maybe religion teaches you not to trust your fellow man.
Oh, emphatically. They want you to put all your faith in this God thing as interpreted by his priests, or, as our first caller pointed out, by the Bible, which she has said is the divine word. So all that means is somebody can sneak in to a new translation, and boom, you've got a new word of God to follow, whatever can be of use to the people in power.
Yeah, well, there's always a new word of God, it seems.
Yeah, look at the Mormons.
It's hard to say, and it's hard to say, too, because there's so many people out there that I think just want to replace themselves as a god. I mean, I don't really consider the communists to be atheists just for that reason. I mean,
well, communism itself was a dogma that could not be challenged, and they, there was this Lysenkoism, which was in Russia. This guy Lysenko kind of took communism to the nth degree, and it ended up impacting scientific exploration, because they couldn't believe that that there was any difference between humans, and it messed up all their genetic programs and such. So it ended up being a terrible thing, and I think the answer is that dogma of any kind is bad, and we beat up on religion quite a bit on this show, but certainly if it's dogma in for whatever is not a good thing. You want to be able to ask questions. You want to be able to delve into why things are working, not working, and question. So.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot harder to avoid dogma than you think it's going to.
It is.
It's Rand kind of sneaks up on you in that matter, and you don't really realize what it's done. And there's still some very solid ideas in her books, but if you've ever hung out with these people, which I did, that when you start hanging out with other people who like Rand, that's when you immediately lose interest in Rand.
Yes, I've got some of her books, The Anti-Industrial Revolution, and the ones that she published that was directly aimed at students, college students from the 60s, and they're just rife with dogmatism. There's so many things they assume have to be good. In fact, Alan Greenspan has 3 or 4 essays in her, and one of them, I forget which one it is.
Yeah, that's in Capitalism of the Unknown Ideal.
Yes, that's that.
I'm very well aware of that, and just the whole thing that. And really, the movement has never, that whole movement's never really recovered since her split with Nathaniel Brandon. It's never been where it was.
And that's one of the problems of having a dogma attached to a personality cult. Is one side might get the personality, one might get the dogma, and neither of them can survive alone.
But I've seen the same kinds of things that have happened with free thought groups and stuff like that. Not quite on the same scale, but it's still not. It seems to be very unfortunate to see. And after you see it happen once, you just kind of don't want to choose sides in anything. You just try to be everybody's friend. It's just.
Well, it may be that humans are trying to look for simple answers, and there really aren't very many of those. That's my assessment.
People love simple answers. That's one of the reasons why the revealed religions are so hot, because they let a person think he knows everything there is to know. Yeah, and
I've been around. Yeah, I've been around long enough to know that there are no simple answers, and that ultimately was what Jefferson was trying to say. Who I really credit more with me leaving the church than I do anybody else.
Oh, really? Thomas Jefferson?
Yeah. Well,
he's definitely a hero of mine.
Believe it or not, Jefferson, and to a certain degree, de Sade.
Well, de Sade announced himself as an atheist, but if you read his writings, you can see he still, somewhere deep down, believed it.
If you read Conversation Between a Priest and a Dying Man, that's...
that's one of his weaker ones, I have to admit.
Well, it's kind of funny, though. And then I read, George Smith's book, and reading Aquinas actually made me believe less, so that was really what probably pushed me over the edge. It wasn't an easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a long process, isn't it?
Yeah, you spend a lot of time, growing up in something like that, and you never really get it presented to you in an objective manner.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course,
is why under the radar, right?
That's why you have the conservatives want to be on the school board. They want to get their kids homeschooled. They want to make sure they've got you for those critical 6 or 7 years at the beginning of your life, so that by the time you can think critically, you have all these underlying principles that you don't realize have been fed to you artificially.
Well, let it be noted, I'm all in favor of homeschoolers. There are lots of people doing it for lots of different reasons. And above all, it seems as though most of them at least come out as thinking individuals as opposed to just the robots that the schools generally produce.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. We have some homeschooling folks in our group in the atheist community.
Right. That's why I was saying the conservative homeschoolers. That's why they seem to favor pulling their kids out. They don't want to expose them to the wide range of ideas that are out there until they've gotten their brains all in order.
Well, certainly. It's certainly the same thing with France over them not allowing them to wear the burqas. The kids don't, or not the burqas, but the hijab or whatever. Mm-hmm. These little girls don't choose to wear those damn things. It's mommy and daddy want them to wear it, so...
Yeah, that's a can of worms.
Oh, yes.
Well, we don't. That's a can of worms we don't want to get started on. Somebody might try to kill us.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
Not really at this point. It's been an interesting show. Are you guys on every Sunday?
The show is on every Sunday. We have sort of a mix of people on. Actually, the two of us are not regulars, or I'm on about once a month or so, and
I usually run the camera.
Oh, okay.
Linda's usually behind the scenes. Our normal host is off today, so
yeah. Okay. Well, thanks.
So, you can check out our website at atheist-community.org. We have a message board if you want to leave messages about the show.
Well, I may do that.
Okay. And there's also an email address, tv@atheist-community.org.
Yeah.
And
I'll
all
give
the
that a shot. So, and I suppose you guys have meetings too. So.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So
well, thanks.
Come check us out. Take care. Any post-call comments on that one?
No, it's just I wish you hadn't brought up that France thing because that still irritates me.
Yeah, well, all right, we'll leave that alone. We'll go on to another caller. Eric, hello.
Hello.
What can we do for you?
I was just wondering, why is it every community in the world has a religion?
Well, we talked about that a little bit on the last show, that it may be that we are evolved for religion, that there are brain centers in our brain for various religious experiences and can be triggered by religious experiences and such, and they feel very profound and very real. And it may be that religions gave us an evolutionary edge at one time, that gathering together people and giving them perhaps a hierarchical or a leader who was potentially blessed by God or whatever claim that happen to be may have been the beginnings of society, may have helped out in our evolutionary history, and we are, so you could claim that we might be wired for religion. Now, whether or not that's something that we want to keep around or is beneficial to us today, that's another question, right? So anyway, that's my answer. Mm-hmm. Did you want to add to that, Linda?
Well, there's also just the plain staying power of the things you learned when you're young, in this case in the youth of humanity. We're a very imaginative species. That's what sets us apart from everything else in the world. And when people see things they don't understand, they're going to put a human agency behind it that eventually balloons into gods, angels, demons. And it's just been with us probably almost since about the dawn of humanity itself.
Yeah, we're very good at finding patterns and things, even though they may not actually exist. We sort of have a problem in that. We're too good at that in some ways.
I mean, witness our first caller. She says the proof of God is around you. Just look around you. In other words, just look around, impose your own pattern and interpretation on the world around you. There's your God. People are still doing that these days, even though they should know better.
But
and of course, to say that when you ask if every culture has a God, don't forget there are still many pantheistic cultures and polytheistic cultures where they have many gods, or they don't have a specific personal God. They think the God is everywhere. So it's not really...
Or Buddhism, there's...
Right.
Yeah, there's,
but so it's not really... People don't all envision a great demiurge in charge of it all. But the religious sensation, the religious feelings does seem to be pretty pandemic.
No, I agree with that, but I'm saying it seems like humankind is wired with the ability to worship a greater being.
To imagine a greater being, certainly. And there are those who, once they've imagined it, feel the need to worship it. People have this strong need to feel
or
as though they belong.
witches or ancestors or ghosts or that sort of thing. There's a very good book called Religion Explained by Pascal Boyer that I just recently read that gets into that. It comes into it from a kind of a cultural anthropology sort of standpoint, and talks about different cultures and the types of beliefs they have and what are sort of common themes, and he has a pretty good explanation for why that is. So I recommend the book. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay, cool.
Okay, well, anything else?
That'll do it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for calling. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we do have a lot of, we got it on good deal. We do as humans seem to have a big infatuation with religions, don't we?
Right, but the way people approach it are so differently. You have the religions who have the personal God that they actually think they can sway with prayer. You have religions that say that God created everything and then disappeared someplace. You have the religions that say,
Theism, right?
Yeah, the gods have never been personalized. They've always just sort of been out there.
Don't forget Buddhism,
Well, they don't have gods.
Right.
Well,
but and I think that's
to an extent they don't.
Yeah, that's certainly worthwhile.
Until, of course, the dogma came in, they split up, and now you have pure line Buddhism versus other kinds of Buddhism, and some of them do have gods, again showing the dangers of dogmatism.
Yep.
So we just have this, most people have this need to not feel alone in the world, and so they imagine these parents is what I think it boils down to.
Yeah. Today is Sunday, November 28th. We're a live call-in show. You're welcome to give us a call and ask us questions, challenge us on our positions. Skepticism is a virtue. You're welcome to be skeptical about anything we're saying.
Accuse us of being too dogmatic.
Yeah, okay. We have another caller on the line, Kevin. Hello, Kevin.
Hey.
Howdy.
What's up?
How y'all doing?
Fine, how are you?
Oh, just fine. I'm watching the show there, just like the rest of your callers, curious.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to ask both of you, how many species are on the face of this planet?
Oh, in the millions, right? Lots.
No, billions.
Billions? Really? Okay.
Right, yeah, there's a gentleman who likes to call up and say that there's only 5 million species, but of course that's already been corrected several times by our producer, and I believe the number he came up with is 10 billion minimum. You have to take into account all the bacteria, all the insects, all the
like 300,000 species of beetles or something, right?
Yeah, over 5 billion species.
Mm-hmm.
How many out of those 5 billion species has our capability of, watching ourselves through television and talking?
Not many.
For just watching themselves, anything with eyes.
No. I mean, creating, televisions and this capability.
Yeah, not many can run 70 miles an hour, right?
How many?
Yeah, not that many can gnaw down a tree and build a dam either.
How many species? out of those 10 billion.
For the very specific quality that you have just named, so far humans are the only one.
Exactly. So,
right. Sir, you've called before, and you've been dealt with at length before on this issue. Do you have additional arguments?
I'm looking for answers. Why is that so?
Because that's the quality that you personally think is important.
Why out of 10 billion is there...
Why is that quality so important?
Huh?
Why is that quality so important?
Well, I'm looking for answers.
No, sir, you've proven in the past you're not looking for answers.
Jeff and what was that
Ashley.
guy?
Ashley?
Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't answer it, and they looked like pretty intelligent guys.
Okay, well, why is it then humans can't fly? Because that's not an important quality?
Well, there's a bunch of birds and bats and everything that can fly.
Right, but what are you defining as an important quality? One that only humans have, or a quality that's just good in general?
I'm asking that why is it only one has our capability?
No, not the capability. There are many species that have the capability of creating, inventing, and using tools. We're the only ones that have gotten to the point that we're actually creating electronics, however.
Oh, electronic, they can create a skill saw or something like that?
No, they can create dams, they can create honeycombs, they can create just unbelievable geometric wonders for their homes. They can create burrows, anthills, or unbelievable complexity.
An internet service or television service?
Sir, why do you think that is an important determination?
Well, because I do. I mean, why?
So I'm guessing you're claiming that God gave us this wonderful thing, and because of God,
out of 10 billion species, only one has our capability. Why is it?
Well, only one has pick any thousands of capabilities, and only one will have it. So what's the point?
Like what? Capability like what?
Like I gave the example of running 70 miles an hour. That the cheetahs are the only ones that can do that.
Well, a greyhound can do that too. Pretty close.
No.
No. What about the ability to dive some 5 miles to the bottom of the ocean without being affected by the water pressure? I know of one species that does that.
Yeah.
Let's look at sperm whales.
That's why I'm calling for answers. How many can do that?
Okay. What's the pertinence to atheism?
Huh?
What is the pertinence to atheism?
Call a science show.
I don't know. Well, you guys are on the show, and you guys are pretty intelligent people.
But that doesn't mean you just pick a topic at random to ask us about it.
Well,
you have to draw a connection to atheism. How does that pertain to your question?
That's what I did. I picked up a topic that to get it explained.
He's missing the point.
Just like last week,
Again.
Don and Ashley were calling in regards. On that show in regards to childbearing and not between both of them, they didn't have a child themselves yet. They were.
So we can't possibly know what children are? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I hate to break it to you, but neither Don nor I have ever built a television or programmed the internet. So you're asking the wrong people about that. Have you?
Why? Why am I acting?
Well, if they were wrong to give opinions on childbearing because they haven't born children, which I don't think either of them could if they wanted to, why are you asking us about building televisions? We haven't built televisions.
Well, you have capability. I mean, you can.
Well, they have the capability of rearing a child.
You can be in an assembly line and put them together.
But you still haven't drawn a connection to atheism.
Have that mentality.
So you still have not drawn a connection to atheism. What you are asking is completely off. I mean, it's off anything. It's off any.
Why? I mean,
because you're not asking an intelligible question.
That called before me, they're looking for answers. And,
well, we've answered your question. There's one species that does what you say.
Mm-hmm.
We have asked you the question, why that quality? Why is that so important? You have evaded that answer.
Okay, evolution gives everybody, according to modern science, evolution gives everybody the same opportunity to go after,
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
That's right.
Well,
so why aren't cheetahs programming on the internet? Is your question? Is that your question?
What's that?
Why aren't cheetahs programming on the internet?
Yeah. So according to evolution,
because they are evolved for a particular niche, right? They are chasing antelopes. That's what they do to earn their living, right? So they have to run fast to chase antelopes.
Atheists believe that evolution is changing, right? Everybody like the worm in the back of your house 10,000 years from now will be teaching there at UT.
That's entirely possible. Yes.
That's possible.
That's possible. Yes.
Okay, so
species tend to be evolving towards more complexity because there's more competition, there's scarce resources, and in order to survive, you have to be better and better at it to fight with the other species that are also evolving.
So out of 10 billion, what's the next species? What's the next?
I don't know. It would only be a guess.
Right now.
It would only be a guess. My guess would be dolphins.
Huh?
My guess would be dolphins would be the next.
Dolphins?
Yeah, but I don't know. Could be elephants.
No, right now. Right now.
Right now, what?
What other species is building homes right now out of wood and brick and
beavers?
Stuff like that? No, out of
But
wood.
the thing is, you're trying to say that you personally are very important because you're a human, because you can do these things that humans can do. However, I guarantee if you were dropped naked in African tundra, you would be dead because you are not evolved to survive that.
Exactly, but I'm not stupid enough to be in the tundra Africa naked.
Should we debate that?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your call.
You and your host can't explain that.
No, it's just you don't want to listen to the answer.
Huh?
You don't want to be told that you are not super duper important, beloved of a God.
No,
the fact is that you think certain things are important because you can do them.
Out of 10 billion species, there's only one. I mean, we're talking about billion. We're not talking about 10.
Billions and billions.
Yeah. 10 times. Out of 10
Okay,
times,
well, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it.
I thought he gave up months ago.
Okay, yeah. So choose any quality you want, right? And eventually, if it has an advantage to a species to have that quality, survival advantage, then there'll be some species that will eventually acquire that capability, whatever that capability is.
And any species that evolved self-awareness is going to assume whatever it can do best is the ultimate goal.
Right.
If we have a great imagination, so we think imagination is the most important thing. That's what makes us special.
So we've evolved in ego, but we haven't evolved
a sense of responsibility to deal with it properly.
We're still working on that one. Okay, that was fun. Okay, so Ed, hello.
Hello.
Howdy.
I was calling back in response to the last caller.
Okay.
So we can see by your comment.
I don't know. I just kind of thought maybe it could be explained that we are the only ones, but it's really like we're just the first.
We're the first, right? We're the first to cross the line.
It's possible that there could wind up being, 10 million years from now, there may be 20, intelligent species.
If we don't kill them off, right, in the meantime, right?
And that was my other point, is that because we were the first, we have a huge advantage now, because anything that comes close to us, there's going to be.
Yep.
That's right.
And when you think about all the various species of homos that have been around, we're Homo sapiens, there have been Homo neanderthalis, Homo habilis.
Right.
And the assumption is that we all more or less live together, and it's just Homo sapiens sort of managed to wipe everybody out.
Right.
We're just like the insects, the spittlebugs, where the first one that hatches goes through and kills all the other eggs, so he doesn't have competition. We're the spittlebugs of the human world.
Exactly. So that was my point. Is just that really it's just that we were the first, and as far as being considered like special, that's special enough. I mean, whether it's 5 billion, 10 billion,
it's certainly interesting. It's
whatever. I'm not sure which is correct, but anyway,
it's an achievement.
It's not 5 million, let me tell you.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, that was my comment.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
We were first.
Yep.
Bye.
We're number one.
We're number one, yeah. Hooray! We win. It doesn't mean there's not other people in the race or other organisms in the race, or even, is what we have the be-all, end-all? No, I don't think evolution is directed towards, humanity or our potential for, I don't know, whatever humans do, thought. There may be something even more wonderful, coming out somewhere else, right? Millions of years ago, our primate ancestors were really sort of not very interesting creatures, and they lived in the time of dinosaurs. early primates, and they weren't very interesting at that time, and look what came out of that. So, given all the plethora of species today, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, you had named dolphins, but I've read some speculative fiction about bees. And in fact, as I recall, in
the social insects are pretty damn amazing.
In fact, in war games, bees got the vote for being the next dominant species.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can kind of see that. The swarm intelligence and all that good stuff. Shall we take on another caller?
Oh, why not?
Okay. John, hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Doing good. I've been watching the show here for about 30 minutes, and I wanted to go back to earlier when a woman called, and you kind of derived a little bit of humor from her contradictions when she was, I guess, kind of...
Well, she made the claim, I think, that the Bible had no contradictions, and we don't buy that.
Oh, I
so we thought that was amusing.
I think it's full of contradictions, but whether that's a negative aspect, I don't know. But what's humorous to me, and I don't mean this offensively, but as far as the contradiction, why do people in the atheist experience spend so much time and energy trying to disprove the existence of something they believe doesn't exist?
Actually, it's not so much trying to disprove the existence as asking people who do believe it to explain why. Because we feel that their inability to apply logic and to think rationally affects everybody in all society as a whole. It has a very detrimental effect.
And though, it seems kind of like a little ridiculous because, what if instead of being an atheist experience, maybe it's like the people against the existence of Santa Claus experience. There's so many people that believe it, but why would you spend so much time disproving to all these kids it's not really real when you yourself know it? That's why I've got questions. I think
because the believers are real and the harm they're doing is real. Yeah, that's what we're worried about.
Yeah, you don't have people going onto school boards and demanding that reindeer evolution include flying. They don't demand that people believe there are little elves everywhere making toys, and if you don't believe that, then you're not a real citizen of the United States.
So basically, you're mad at them forcing the religious beliefs down on people like yourselves or their children.
No, it's not the beliefs themselves. It's the effect. Sorry about this. This upsets me.
Go ahead.
It's not the beliefs per se. It's the complete, unthinking, lockstep, mindless inability to cope with the real world, to try to force other people into the exact same coping mechanisms of denial and refusal to accept responsibility. That has caused untold harm in the world. And these people are trying to codify that in law, and they are affecting us, they are affecting you, they are affecting people in Zimbabwe, Australia, everywhere around the world. So they can believe whatever they want. It's when they try to translate these beliefs into concrete terms and foist them on everybody else that we have problems.
Yeah, that's why I think maybe you should change your title, because when I see atheist experience, I think people that are just there to disprove the existence of God. And to me, that's silly. Like I said, a lot of people would be out saying Santa Claus isn't real. I'm going to spend time and energy and stuff. But I see you're saying the effect of the belief in God is causing this pain in the world.
Right. Well, this is translated into actions, and it applies to being called the atheist experience because we experience this firsthand almost every day. I mean, did you tune in while Don was reading the statistics for birth, for unwed mothers, for abortions, for divorce?
What does that have to do with whether there's intelligent design or not? See, I believe in intelligent design. I really don't care if y'all do or don't. I just called in because the whole disproving the existence of something that struck me as really ironic.
Well, see, the problem with intelligent design, again, if you keep it to yourself, that's fine. If you want to demand other people learn it, then you are overturning centuries of human endeavor. You are blowing away almost every branch of science, and by trying to replace evolution, which I'm not saying you don't necessarily believe in, but most intelligent design people say evolution never happened, they are already undermining all medical science, and they're trying to throw us back to the Stone Age.
Well, I think if you got a theory, then
intelligent design is not a theory.
Both sides get to be in there.
No, sir. Intelligent design is not a theory. Intelligent design is not a theory.
What is it?
It is a hypothesis. In scientific terms...
What's the difference between a theory is not a proven thing either, though. That's why it's still called a theory.
No, sir. You're using the layman's term. In a layman's term, I might have a theory that people who wear plaid, are silly, something like that. And I have no proof for this.
Well,
in scientific terms,
this doesn't disprove intelligent design anyway.
Sir, in scientific terms, a hypothesis is just throwing out something at random. Somebody designed the world. People who wear plaid are, silly people who all like ice cream, something like that. When you've accumulated a little bit of proof, you've run some experiments, you have evidence to support your conclusion, then in scientific terms, you've got a theory. I'm sure there's some other steps I'm leaving out, but you have to have some evidence and some proof before you have...
It has to be falsifiable.
And it has to be falsifiable, correct, before it can be termed a theory in scientific terms.
Yeah.
By confounding the layman's understanding of theory with the scientific theory, that is how your cohorts on the board, Ontario Leo, and national school boards, that's how they're getting themselves in. They're already banking on the ignorance of people who already can't tell the difference between a scientific theory and a layman's theory. And they're trying to say, well, because this is a theory, it's just as valid as evolution. And they are wrong.
Well, that's all good and fine. Have whatever evolution theory you want in school. But to me, back to the basic concept of whether there's an intelligent designer or not is where I thought the heart of atheism lay. But it seems like more that what you were trying to do is stop people trying to indoctrinate you into a specific belief or not via the...
Well, atheism to us is the lack of a belief. So we don't have a belief in gods, and we tend to have a very skeptical bent. We're not out to prove that God doesn't exist. People are making a claim, making a positive claim that gods do exist, and we should follow them and we should worship them and all this stuff. And to quote Carl Sagan, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So you have to, if you're going to make this huge claim, you have to give us some proof, right? And we don't see much of that. So that's a big part of what we're doing here.
I don't really care if you buy it or not. I don't really. Yeah, it would be great if you believe there's an intelligent designer, because I do. But it's not really a big deal. But that's the beauty of it. I don't think there's really huge proof on either side if you don't choose to accept it. But to me, the uniformity of the human design, like if you look at your hands and you put them together, and the uniformity of our ability to heal and everything, that just doesn't seem so random to me. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Well, there is design. It's just there's not a designer, right? There's this evolutionary process that did this design, right?
Yeah, but somewhere along the line, there's got to be it's sort of like the question of a lot of people say to people like myself that believe in that designer, they're like, well, if that's true, where did the designer come from? Well, you know what? I don't know, but I can just tell that I look like I believe I am human, and the way the world works, if it was much closer to the sun or farther away, we'd all be dead. I was like, the stuff, it's just too many things are coincidental for me to not believe there's a designer.
If it were closer to the sun, species would have evolved to deal with that difference in temperature. If we're further from the sun, species would have evolved for that. We happen to be an excellent species for this.
You acknowledge the existence of a genetic code, right? In DNA, you believe in DNA?
Well, it's not a matter of believing in DNA.
We have lots of evidence for DNA.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, the code and the design, it comes from square one somewhere, and they haven't been able to break it yet. So when they do, maybe they'll be closer to knowing if there was a design or not. I'm betting there is. You're betting there's not, but
Well,
it's not a bet.
There's an interesting thing in computer science called genetic programming that actually does this evolutionary process, but in software. So you start out with basically a minimalist program or a minimalist circuit or a minimalist whatever, and you actually go through the whole evolutionary process of generating mutations, testing them out with regard to a particular fitness function, and whichever ones are the best according to that fitness function, they live on, and they get.
I get the concept. I don't not believe in natural selection. I'm fine with that. I'm just saying that I believe that the whole universe, the whole maybe not the whole universe, but our world, our Terra, was designed and spun into action by somebody that had a concept.
Right. So let me continue with this. They can actually evolve using these methods, electronic circuits that have been patented, right? So patents, in my opinion, is a very good test of intelligent design. So something that has been patented is something that's non-trivial, right? And actually solves something.
Now, you're talking in circles. I don't know that a computer can. I'm talking broader than a computer as far back as the modern science can go. I'm just saying that the way that there's still plenty of mysteries that we don't know. We used to think.
So there must be God, right, to answer those mysteries? there must be God to answer the mysteries. So I don't know. There must be God.
I just think that the way we look, the way we operate, the way we heal, that it was designed. And I think there's a designer. You don't. I've got feelings.
I fully admit it looks that way.
Pardon?
I fully admit it looks that way. And I've given you an explanation for how evolution can do that design.
I'm just asking you, where did square one come from on that design? Where did the first stuff
we have
come from?
We have chemicals. We have chemicals. We have atoms and molecules.
That's what I'm saying. It's the never-ending circle of which came first. Where did those molecules come from?
Well, that's just it. They're still examining it. See, when you decide that there's going to be a designer, you have in that instant cut off all investigation. Whereas we,
I'm not saying don't investigate it. I'm saying get to know it. But
you're saying you've got the answer, though. You're saying there is a designer. Why should you continue to investigate?
Well, I don't on a day-to-day basis because I leave it that. I pretty much leave it at that. But I like to enjoy the scientific aspect because that helps us cure more diseases and things like that. But what I'm saying is that on the ground level debate in myself, I can tell by the uniformity of the structure of mammals that I believe there's a designer.
Okay, but the thing of it is, if you believe there's a designer, and you said you haven't really thought about where he came from, then it seems like you're just doing a little stopgap measure. Why haven't you thought about
where he came from?
Okay, where did he come from?
I know it's beyond my scope of reason.
Then where did the designer come from?
I don't know. That's a question I said earlier. That's where you get to, who came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but I know I have emotions and beliefs and feelings and things that are off the law of probabilities that happen in my life, which is what those Christians call faith, which is what I got.
Well, do you believe the designer was designed? If you have to be designed to be complex.
That's the thing. Maybe the designer evolved in a different planet somewhere, but I know that I believe that there's one designer here just because I feel it. If there was more, then that's great, but...
You're working on emotion. You don't have any actual hardcore objective evidence to back up your position? It's just a feeling?
My position of uniformity of the mammalian structure is backed up. You know that you're geometrically just as bad as... there's maybe one finger's slightly longer, but pretty much our body
symmetry.
It's not like we have
some big
dangling hand on the other side. We're genetically engineered. We have been designed.
If we had been designed, why weren't we designed more efficiently? Why don't our knees bend more like our elbows backwards? That would release any problems we have. Most problems with arthritis right there. That would cure them. That's the way birds' legs are.
Why is my lower back causing me problems?
Well,
right. Why is it the human body is designed to fall apart?
I don't think we were designed perfectly. Don't get me there. I didn't say it was a perfect design. I said it's a
pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Huh?
Why do we have an appendix that can just flare up and explode and kill a person without any warning?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we were designed to be immortal. I think we were designed to be definitely mortal.
Well, that would be akin to designing a car that has a bomb in the engine compartment, which is just going to explode without warning.
Well,
you would have to call somebody who does that incompetent.
Why don't you compare the 1972 AMC Gremlin to a Mercedes? They did the best they could at the time. Maybe in 1,000 years, God decides to design some more stuff that'll be better.
So you're saying that there's the designer still looking
so
over
God has limits, huh? He doesn't have enough resources, enough time?
Enough education?
That's you hear a lot of Christians go that God is omnipotent or omniscient.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that to some degree. However, God's subject to the laws of love, and he's probably subject to the laws of his own design.
So he designed himself?
Huh?
He designed himself?
That's the question. I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm not saying is that all I know.
Sounds circular to me.
That we have a designer. That's it. I can't take it to the next step because I don't think any of the one of the three of us has the capacity to do so. I'd like to sit around and think we do, but I just don't think we do. We have to wait and see.
I'd prefer to think I don't have the capacity to give that kind of unbelievable power to a being that doesn't even exist or can't be proven to exist. No, I would have to worry about my mental stability if I could do that.
Yeah, I think it's proven in my observation, but you don't.
Well, if you've made observations, though, then they should be objective and should give the exact same response to anybody who sees these items. So why is it that the scientific establishment doesn't agree with you?
You'd have to take it up with them.
Okay.
But just wanted to talk to y'all about it. All right.
Okay, John. Well, take care. Thank you for your call.
All right. We'll see you later.
Okay. We have a little transparency on talk.origins. That's a very good website for evolution information. You can go check that out.
And a lot of the people involved with them are actual scientists in the life sciences fields, which we are not.
Yeah. So that's a good site. So shall we go on here to Lamar. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Howdy.
Fine, how are you?
Don and Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like y'all having a good time.
Well, we're trying to.
Hey, tell me a little bit about the Atheist Experience. I mean, what attracts people, or what should attract me to it, besides y'all just look good up there on
stage? The show, or are you referring to the Atheist Community of Austin? Our parent group?
Experience, Atheist Community. I mean, what does it mean to get involved, and what's it going to do for my life? How's it going to help me out, and why would it be attractive for me?
Well, our group is based on skepticism, separation of church and state, positive atheism. So we try to use reason to make decisions in our lives and have public policies based on reason. Separation of church and state is all about letting the religious people believe what they want to believe, but in our government we have a secular government. We keep those two separate, and we think that these are good principles to have both for our lives and in our government.
What if I'm sick? I don't feel well. I'm in a wheelchair. I mean, what's going to give me some comfort and peace? Is there anything like in your organization that kind of makes me feel better about?
We have a social group as well, and we take care of people that are ill, and we try to look out for each other just like lots of other human groups. So we're no different in that respect.
Because Don, I heard you earlier mention something about the history of religion, and you said when people pray they get a certain feeling, and did you say that just comes from ancient times of worshiping God, or where does that
yeah, they've actually done
when they worship God?
They've done brain scans, and certain regions of the brain light up when that happens, and that's has to do with areas that deal with your sense of place in the physical world, and have to do with your sense of ecstasy, like orgasms kind of are right around in there too. So all that is triggered by religious experience.
But how can I have that experience if I hang out with y'all?
I'm sorry?
How can I have that kind of experience if I hang out with y'all?
Yeah, we don't promise you that, unfortunately. So kind of I don't know, kind of boring that way. What can I say?
Okay.
That's a good question.
On kind of a global historical sense, are there any atheistic societies throughout time that have prospered and done well, or is this like a new thing?
Oh, it's not new. You can look to China, the absolute most spectacular civilizations up until modern times, of course. They've built up on Taoism and Buddhism, both very atheistic philosophies.
I thought Buddha's not a god.
No, he's not.
No.
There have actually been splits in dogma where some people have adopted gods like Amida Buddha and all these, but Buddha himself was actually a prince named Gautama, a historical figure. No, Siddhartha, excuse me.
Siddhartha.
Yeah, he was a historical figure who was simply enlightened and went around as a prophet. And he's not a god, and he's never claimed to be a god, and the people who follow Buddhists don't claim to be gods either. And it's sort of the same thing with Taoists, is pure Taoism has absolutely no gods. But again, as modern times came up, people felt the need to have gods, and they split off, and then you have some who have the Heavenly Father and the three immortals.
Is that still a religion?
When they do the split-offs, yes. But if you go through pure Buddhism, pure Taoism, you're going to find they're just philosophies, pure atheistic philosophies. As they say, China...
Confucianism too, right?
And Confucianism. Those are the three biggies that China was built on. You are not going to find a more spectacular civilization back in the modern time, in ancient times, up until, say, around 18th, 19th century.
Okay, but current Buddhists, that's a religion.
No, some of them are.
Well, we
some of them adopt
we treat them as a religion in the United States, certainly, yes.
No, he means with God. You mean with gods, correct?
Well, I assume atheism is a rejection of all God and all religions, both.
Oh,
right?
No, it's a stance where you haven't seen any proof that any God or any religion exists. I mean, any God exists, therefore, point for religion. It's not a rejection because you have to have something to reject.
Okay, so all of mankind's hope then is going to be in himself.
In himself and in society and humanity in general. It's not a purely selfish.
Right, so we should put all society and how good people are, the fundamental goodness of people.
We have a long way to go yet. There's no doubt about that. But yes,
a lot of hope.
That's a lot of hope.
Is it? Well, good luck. Have a nice day.
Well, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. I guess that was just too much to ask for, huh? To hope in our fellow man.
Yeah. Shake this dogma, this telling kids who are only 3 years old exactly what philosophy looks like. we could be such a much better, more hopeful, just a greater society. And the next caller, I believe, was a woman named Sarah, who was on line 1, wanted to ask about...
You have a good memory. Okay. Teleprompter went off, so... Sarah, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Fine. What do you got for us?
I had a question. No one has died in my family or anything recently, but I recently have just been, sort of leaning more towards atheism, and a lot of the things, I've been watching you since you started today, and I just really, a lot of the things that you say, I agree with. But what do atheists do as far as if someone dies, like about funerals? I mean, is it still, like, do you still have it at a funeral home, or, I mean...
Well, the thing with that is it depends not on you. It's the person who's just passed away. Last summer, he actually was shrouded by a priest. He went through the whole thing out and that horribly creepy giving the wafer and it's a God's body. He was prayed over. The thing of it is, it's just respect for the person who's ill. To that.
But I mean, as far as is atheist, is there a procedure or?
There isn't a lot of sort of standard. There are various groups that do things like that. There's the American Humanists have a notion of a celebrant, who is someone who is a non-theist, who basically presides over some of these life passage moments. They can do weddings, and they can do funerals and that sort of thing. That might be something that you might want to look into. I believe that the American Atheists website some information on various funeral and things that people have done and have posted as suggestions to others. But in a sense, unfortunately, we don't have all this tradition like some of the other churches and such do. This.
Well, and one thing to remember, of course, is just the good old-fashioned tradition is completely denominational, and that could be a very important aspect for somebody who's in mourning.
Okay.
It's not hard. It's not hard to assert your own arrangements and such, and to have your own directives, like for your own directives for your children to carry out, that sort of thing. Funeral homes are more happy to accommodate various religious groups and beliefs or lack of beliefs, and they basically organize the viewing if you care to do a viewing for whatever the desire. So people are, I think that industry, if you will, is more accommodating.
Yeah. Well, I just also wanted to, I guess it depends on the person, but my mother was Jewish, which technically makes me Jewish. My father was Baptist and then converted to Presbyterian. It helped me make my own choices. So, we did all the Jewish celebrations and Christian things, and just gave me the opportunity to decide.
Yeah, so maybe a good thing would be to pick and choose what you like out of those traditions.
Yeah, so I think that kind of maybe with other people raising children, they should just have the opportunity, even if they want to, giving them the choose for themselves is very important. Show them other religious practices and things, and just let them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good suggestion.
So, I don't have, but a suggestion, I guess. So. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate the call, and I'm going to, because we're time.
Okay, thanks. Okay,
thank you. Okay, so about the show, or if you stuck on the line and didn't get to call in, you can call us. Community. Our website also has message boards concerning more public forums. tonight we're going, the show, 6:45 is about when this is I-35 and 183, the corner, and come down to us, atheist or atheist friendly. We would look forward to meeting you.